Belgian fortress of Liège has been destroyed. The German First Army is in firm hold of Ghent. Namur is in Allied hands, but two German armies are approaching. It is the August 16th to 18th turn. The Germans have this and the next turn to capture and hold Namur for a victory. The French have to activate first in order to fortify their positions. So on we go, and we pull the first chit of the turn. And it is the French Fourth Army. The French Fourth Army has its infantry concentrated in Florennes. It cannot reach Namur, it doesn't have the ability to force march. So it moves into Dinant. And the cavalry corps of the Fourth Army enters Namur. Now the Allies have 7 steps in Namur, which ensures that the Third Army cannot destroy the fortress in one turn. Next chit, and it's the German Force March event. Now we pull the next chit, and it's von Hausen's Third German Army. The Germans don't have a choice, and von Hausen's army enters Namur, and we have siege combat. On to the battle board. Note that the Germans won't be able to destroy the fortress in this turn, but they can soften the defenses up. So we roll for the Germans, and the Germans only score 1 hit. Now the Allies fire back, and the Allies score 2 hits, so they win this battle. The Allies reduce one of their French units. The Germans, to concentrate more power and fewer units, eliminate 2 of their reduced infantry corps. And that way they preserve the strength of their stronger units. And the German Third Army has to retreat back to Huy. And that setback may actually be a blessing in disguise for the Germans, because if the Third Army would have stayed besieging Namur, stacking limitations would have limited the attack of the upcoming Fourth German Army. So we pull the next chit, and it's the first turn end marker. Next chit, and it's the Belgians' turn to activate. The Belgians have no units to move and no fortresses to fire upon besieging enemies. So we pull the next chit, and it's the Big Bertha German event, which can come in handy in the case of an attack by the Fourth Army at Namur. Next chit, and it's the Allied sabotage marker that has been pulled in the nick of time. Because if played on the German Fourth Army, its infantry will not reach Namur this turn. So now the best thing the Germans can hope for is that those 3 turn-end markers come in before the French can activate their Fifth Army and continue to reinforce Namur. We pull the next chit, and it's the German First Army. The First Army has concentrated most of its units in Ghent. 2 of its units are at Louvain, and those 2 units are too far away to make it to Namur in one march. So the Germans will ensure that Ghent remains in their hands and will march those 2 units through Mechelen and into Ghent. The Allies need to save the sabotage event for the German Fourth Army. So we pull the next chit, and it's the French Fifth Army. Stacking limits is 8 steps, and the fortress, even though it's reduced, counts as 4. So the French can stack 1 more unit at Namur, and they will do so. They will move their Third Corps, that is at Gembloux, into Namur. The remaining Fifth Army units are at Brussels, and they're keeping an eye on the German First Army. The German First Army has more than 5 units at Ghent. So in order to avoid a possible advance on Brussels, the Fifth Army will leave 2 units there and will send one of its infantry corps through Wavre into Gembloux, just in case the defenders at Namur need more strength later. The German Fourth Army needs to attack and do it soon. And we pull the next chit, and it's von Bülow's Second Army. Bülow's army is at Verviers, and it can easily reach Warem and possibly dispose of whatever Belgian resistance is there, with the hopes that in the next turn it may even launch an attack on Namur. So it marches through Liège and into Warem. Now we reveal the Garde Civique counter, a fairly weak civic unit. We resolve the battle on the map. The Germans fire first. They score 2 hits, which ensures victory in the battle and the destruction of the Garde Civique, which fires first but causes no hits. The defenders are eliminated, and now the Second Army is within striking distance of Namur for the next turn. Next chit, and it's Albrecht's Fourth German Army. The infantry of the Fourth Army is a march away from Namur, and the Allies play the sabotage event, and now the infantry won't make it to Namur. However, the Germans now play the force march event, which cancels the sabotage event. Now the infantry will be able to move onto Namur, and it does so through March, where it joins the cavalry, and into the fortress. And we have a round of siege combat, and the Germans will use their Big Bertha event. So, on to the battle board. The Germans have 7 units and the Big Bertha event, and we will roll for the Germans first. And the Germans only score 2 hits with their infantry and cavalry units. Now the Allies fire back, and they roll 6 dice. The Allies only score 1 hit. And with the Big Bertha event, the Allies suffer a total of 3 hits, 1 against the fortress, which now is reduced to 1 step. And the other 2 hits eliminate the reduced infantry corps of the Fifth Army and the Fourth Army's cavalry. And on the German side, the Germans reduce one of their infantry corps. So the siege of Namur rages on with the Fourth Army, and with 3 atrocities committed, in the next turn the Fourth Army is assured 1 more shot at destroying the fortress. So we pull the next chit from the cup, and it's the Zeppelins German event. Next chit, and it's the Allied Force March event. Next chit, and it's the third and last turned end marker. And this turn comes to a close. And the British stayed where they are at Ath. And we move on to the August 19 to 21 turn. To win, the Germans have to achieve their victory conditions in the next turn, or else the best they can hope for is a draw. The Germans have their Fourth Army, mostly intact, besieging Namur, and it will have another opportunity to take the fortress. However, if the Allies, during the next turn, get to activate their Fourth and Fifth Armies before the Germans activate the Crown Prince's army, they could heavily reinforce the fortress. So who will move first? Ghent is in German hands for sure, and Liège has fallen to the Germans. And if the Fourth German Army is repulsed, the Second and Third German Armies may finish the job. So stick around for the 5th turn of Brave Little Belgium. This is Stuka Joe, signing off for now. Thanks for watching.